I don't think that the team needs that inspiration. It was a great moment for South Africa so long ago.
The 2026 World Cup is the largest in the tournament's history. For the first time, 48 teams will compete, up from 32, playing a record of 104 matches across 39 days. This is more than 40 games than the previous edition in Qatar. To fit the bigger games, organizers created an entirely new knockout round, the round of 32, which has never existed at a men's World Cup before. The teams are split into 12 groups of 4, and the tournament runs from June 11th to July 19th, 2026. It's the first format change since 1998. A tournament this size has never been attempted, and whether it runs smoothly is a quiet question hanging over the whole event. For the first time in history, 3 nations are sharing a single World Cup. The United States, Canada, and Mexico will stage matches across 16 cities, with the United States holding 78 of the 104 games, including every match from the quarterfinals onward. Canada and Mexico host 13 each. Only once before has the tournament been split between countries, when Japan and South Korea shared it in 2002. With this edition, Mexico becomes the first nation ever to host the Men's World Cup 3 times, after 1970 and 1986. For Canada, it's the very first time hosting the men's tournament at all. Estadio Azteca in Mexico City is about to do something no other venue has done. On June 11th, 2026, it opens a tournament with Mexico facing South Africa, becoming the first stadium in history to host matches at 3 separate World Cups. It staged the finals in both 1970 and 1986, which makes it the only ground on Earth where both Pele and Diego Maradona lifted the trophy. The stadium also sits at a remarkable altitude, roughly 7,300 feet above sea level. Few buildings in sport carry this much history. Curaçao has done something no country its size has ever managed. Home to only about 156,000 people, it has become the smallest nation by population ever to reach a World Cup. To put that into perspective, it is less than half the size of Iceland, the previous record holder. Curaçao is one of the 4 debut nations this year, alongside Cape Verde, Jordan, and Uzbekistan. Cape Verde, with around 525,000 people, is the 3rd smallest nation ever to qualify. The expanded format opened the door, and these small nations walk straight through it. Uzbekistan has made history as the first Central Asian nation ever to reach a men's World Cup. For 34 years, the country had come close and fallen short in the final rounds. A near miss that stung an entire football-loving nation again and again. This time, they finally crossed that line. Adding to the storyline, the team is guided by Fabio Cannavaro, the Italian who captained his country to World Cup glory in 2006. A debutant nation led by a former world-winning captain is exactly the kind of subplot the expanded tournament was designed to create.
Italy were trying to avoid disaster by missing their 3rd consecutive World Cup. Really, truly unheard of.
Italy will not be at the 2026 World Cup, and that absence is one of the biggest shocks in modern football. The 4-time World Cup champions fell in the qualifying playoff to Bosnia and Herzegovina on penalties on March 31st, 2026. Missing the tournament for the 3rd straight time. For a nation like Italy, it's almost unthinkable to go this long without entering into the World Cup. The last time Italy actually appeared in the World Cup was 2014, more than a decade ago, and their coach stepped down by mutual agreement within days. Meanwhile, the larger field welcomed back nations absent since the 1970s. The 2026 World Cup carries the richest prize fund the tournament has ever offered. In December 2025, FIFA approved a record $655 million in performance-based prize money, a 50% jump from the previous edition. The winning nation alone will take home $50 million, the largest payout ever for a World Cup champion. Even a team that exists in the group stage is guaranteed around $9 million. And with separate preparation payments, every nation leaves with at least $10.5 million. Remarkably, not a single new stadium was built for this tournament, a sharp contrast to the enormous construction builds of the past. The 2026 final at MetLife Stadium will break a more than 90-year tradition by staging the first halftime show in World Cup history. Inspired by the Super Bowl, the performance is being curated by Coldplay's Chris Martin, with a lineup reported to include some of the biggest names in music. For the first time, the tournament will also hold 3 separate opening ceremonies, one in each host nation. Even the official ball is unusual, built from just 4 panels, the fewest of any World Cup ball, with a motion sensor inside feeding data to the video review system.
The heat is a great equaliser, so we could see maybe some unexpected results if you've got a top team who hasn't prepared.
The 2026 World Cup faces a challenge no amount of planning fully resolves: the summer heat. Researchers studying the 16 host cities warned that a large share of matches could be played in risky conditions, with one analysis finding that roughly a quarter of the 104 games may exceed the safety limits recommended for players. Organizers responded by steering daytime matches toward air-conditioned indoor stadiums and pushing high-risk open-air games to evening kickoffs. And they also added mandatory hydration breaks.
Ticket prices for FIFA's World Cup final are now going for nearly $11,000.
World Cup 2026 is the first to use dynamic demand-based ticket pricing, and the results have drawn serious scrutiny. The most expensive final tickets, first offered at around $6,730, later rose to nearly $11,000, with resale listings climbing far higher. In late May of 2026, the Attorney General of New York and New Jersey formally questioned FIFA over its ticketing practices, pointing to reports that prices across most matches had risen by an average of about 34%. The tournament is also the most spread out ever, with its 2 furthest venues, Vancouver and Mexico City, sitting roughly 2,700 miles apart. For traveling fans, the tournament of a lifetime may also be the most demanding one yet. Another thing to note about the 2026 World Cup is that there was a lot of promise by FIFA to various hotel companies, promising that there was going to be a big boom in tourism, but it appears that many fans are deciding to sit this World Cup out and watch from their TVs at home. With economic conditions as well as the soaring ticket prices and travel restrictions, so many factors go into why a lot of people are deciding to just completely opt out. The cost of tickets, the cost of traveling, the cost of hotels. Yeah, that adds up really quick. But it's the World Cup. It only happens once in 4 years. For many, many fans, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. And no matter the cost, they will pay. No matter the distance, they will travel.
FIFA is undoubtedly one of the biggest and most popular sports competitions in the entire world. With millions of viewers from all around the world and thousands of different players from different cultures and countries, one must wonder, how did FIFA begin in the first place? Now, it's safe to say that soccer, football all started with famous public schools in the 19th century in England. Now, at the time, there was no standard form of the game. In fact, each school developed their own playing style depending on the type of ground and field that was available to them. It's kind of like when you play a game of pool at the bar. You know how you're always changing the rules. Yeah, to benefit you. Trust me, I know, I do it all the time. Now, it was these different circumstances that emerged a type of game that depended more on the player's dribbling skills rather than the kind of robust energy in a rugby scrum. And what that basically meant was some schools favored that there was a more rugged sort of game where you could like grab the ball and run with it, that sort of thing. But as the game progressed into the 19th century, people noticed a new attitude towards football. And this attitude encouraged fine qualities among men like loyalty and cooperation. Games during this time became an integral part of school curriculum, and finally in 1863 things took a turn, where there was an initiative that was began by the Cambridge University to lay down some standard uniforms and rules for the game that was to become football. And by October 26th of 1863, 11 London clubs and schools came together to clarify the muddled rules between football and rugby and lay down some acceptable rules to all parties. And you could say that this pretty much marked the beginning of the Football Association. And it wasn't long because later that year on December 8th of 1863, football and rugby finally split, becoming their own separate sports. And because of their separation, it became a big thing that football rules forbid any handling of the ball. What I mean by that is not being able to carry it. And from there on, this football association progressed very quick, with the first football competition in the world being the FA Cup, established only a few years later in 1872. By 1888, the first league championship was underway, and football at this time had major influence all over the world due to the fact that the British Empire was spreading as well. Now, for all you big FIFA fans, you guys already know that FIFA was established in 1904. Now, this was founded in May of that year, and it had 7 founders initially, which were Belgium, France, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, which was represented by Madrid FC. There was also Sweden and Switzerland. And as for the German Football Federation, they cabled its intention to join on the same day as the rest of them. And thus, that began the real international football community, which grew steadily. And by the late 1930s, there were 51 FIFA members. And by 1950, after the lull of the Second World War, they had 73 members. Now, because of FIFA's rivalry with the international Olympic community, it led to the organization to conduct their first World Cup in Uruguay in 1930. And when the tournament first started, it was actually extremely small, and only countries were allowed to join through invitation. And oddly enough, during this time, it was hardly discussed in Britain, which was the birthplace of this sport. But as of today, it is the most awaited sport event in the entire world, bringing together millions of people from around the world. And oddly enough, did you know that FIFA is so big and so popular that it has more official members than the United Nations? In fact, it has become so big that FIFA has more member associations than member states in the United Nations General Assembly. And it's so big, it's an organization that has such international power that can be reckoned with, as it has 6 regional confederations, which is roughly the world's continents, that feed into the overall organization of the game. As for the FIFA Congress, it's comprised of delegates from all around the world and elects the organization's presidents in elections held at the FIFA headquarters in Zurich, Switzerland. And as for the president and the head of the regional confederations, they are part of FIFA's executive committee, which is the organization's main decision-making body. It is a committee that votes on which country gets to host the next World Cup. But you may wonder, what happens if FIFA gets way big? Do they have a way to deal with that? Well, when anything gets too big, it tends to face the common problem of over-commercialization. With the advent of television and advertising rights and global obsession with soccer, it has turned FIFA into a multi-billion-dollar industry. And to give you an idea of how much this organization makes, in 2014, it had a revenue of $4 billion. But one kind of really interesting thing about FIFA, it's listed as a non-profit organization, so they actually don't get hit with a lot of taxes. Yeah, they figured out a way around that loophole. And because of this, FIFA has had, unfortunately, some negative press, being known as a breeding ground for systematic system that breeds rampant corruption. And what I mean by that is throughout FIFA's history, there's been a lot of members that have been accused for taking bribes. And not only that, but also kickbacks from other various firms in bidding for lucrative soccer-related contracts. And although FIFA is an institution that has not been able to shake off this negative criticism, with many people arguing that soccer is not a matter for politics and is just simply a fun game. And overall, it doesn't change the fact that FIFA continues to change the world in both positive and negative ways. And overall, it's a game that is just for families, friends, and good times.
Here we have West Germany versus France in 1982. So one of the most violent World Cup injuries ever took place in Spain in 1982 in a semi-final match between West Germany and France. So these two countries were level at 1-1 during the 58th minute when France's Patrick Battensen was racing towards a German goal before German goalkeeper Harald Schumacher. And let's just say that the play didn't end well for Battensen as Schumacher steamrolled into his body. Battensen was knocked out completely cold. He lost 3 of his teeth. He had damage to his vertebrae, and he later slipped into a coma. Now for this, Schumacher should have probably been thrown out of the game or arrested, but the referee just granted a free kick. Okay, moving on to 1962, we have France versus Kuwait. The 1962 World Cup grabbed headlines during the group match between France and Kuwait. The French were leading Kuwait 3-1 when all of a sudden their opponents seemed to have stopped playing for a few seconds. The French took advantage of the situation, of course, and then they scored another goal, making it 4-1. And people of Kuwait protested, arguing that the players heard a whistle, which is why they stood still. The president of Kuwait's Football Association came down to the field and protested that he would pull his players out if the goal stood, because someone in the crowd must have blown a whistle. The referee then disallowed the goal and the game went on. But guess what? The final score? France, 4-1. So that didn't really help anything. Okay, so now let's take a look at Croatia and Australia's match in 2006. During the 2016 World Cup, it became infamous for the referee's ability to count. During the 61st minute of the game, English referee Graham Poll issued Josip Simunic of Croatia a yellow card, but he forgot to write it down in his notebook. Simunic received a second card in the 90th minute, meaning that he should have been removed from the game, but he stayed put since nobody asked him to leave. At the final whistle, Simunic received another yellow card and the referee showed him a red card, believing it was his second yellow card. But none of the referees noticed error and Poll took full blame after the 2-2 draw. Alright, so another 2006 match, Netherlands versus Portugal. Now what was so surprising about this round 16 match between Netherlands and Portugal wasn't the goal or the saves or anything like that, but it was the match referee. Neither the Dutch or the Portuguese were known for playing dirty, and yet the referee Valentin Ivanov of Russia handed out 4 red cards and 16 yellow cards during the match. I mean, this guy went nuts, and this is a World Cup record for the amount of cards being drawn in a game. Going back down now to 1962, we have Chile versus Italy. This match was called the Battle of Santiago, and Chile was the host nation of this World Cup. Why this match has gone down in history as one of the most shocking moments in World Cup history is due to the fact that the game was incredibly violent. Players were punched, spat on, and at one point in the game, the police had actually come to escort a player who refused to leave the field. And people were calling this the most disgraceful game of football ever. Okay, so halfway now in at number 5, England versus West Germany in the 1966 World Cup. One of the most debated incidents in the World Cup history took place during the 1966 final between host England and West Germany. Now, Germans managed to tie the game 2-2 during the last minute to force extra time. And then after 11 minutes into extra time, England's Geoff Hurst seemed to have scored when his shot smashed off the crossbar. The ball then bounced downwards to the goal line and then back out into the field of play. It happened so fast that it was virtually impossible to tell whether the ball crossed the goal line. But eventually the decision was made to award England the goal, and they took their first and only World Cup victory. We got Germany and England again, this time in 2010. Now this was another controversial moment in World Cup history, and this was caused by a shot crossing the line when Germany and England got together in South Africa in 2010. This time, however, the outcome wasn't in favor of England. There's straight up proof that Frank Lampard's long shot crossed the line, but the referee Jorge Lorianda of Uruguay refused to give the goal. And instead of going into halftime tied 2-2, England had to stay aggressive in the second half. Germany then scored twice in the last 22 minutes to win 4-1. Let's look at the 2006 World Cup again with France versus Italy. Now this game had gained notoriety for the French midfielder Zinedine Zidane's infamous headbutt moment. The game was level in extra time with 10 minutes to go when Zinedine Zidane drove his head forcefully into the chest of Marco Materazzi. It was later reported that Materazzi got Zidane agitated because he was making some lewd comments about his mother and sister. So Zidane had enough. Boom! Headbutt. He, of course, was sent off for violent conduct, and Italy went on to win 5-3 in a penalty shootout. And this was a historical game, not just for the headbutt, but it also marked Zinedine Zidane's last football game. Now we got two more. Our second last one is the 1986 World Cup, and this is Argentina and England. The highlight of Diego Maradona's controversy-filled life was the 1986 quarterfinal match between Argentina and England. So 6 minutes into the second half of the game, there was a major controversy. Maradona went on a run and punched the ball into the net. The English players screamed for a handball, and everyone saw the infringement except for the Tunisian referee. The goal was given and came to be known as the Hand of God. Argentina won the match 2-1 and then went on to win the World Cup. Yeah, and I have absolutely no idea how the referee missed that. Now, Colombia versus United States in the 1994 World Cup is our final most controversial moment in World Cup history. The Colombian defender Andres Escobar mistakenly scored an own goal in a group match against the United States, giving the Americans a 2-1 victory. The American victory caused Colombia to be eliminated after the group stage, and this was a disappointing end for the team that expected to compete for the championship. The match took place on June 22nd, but just over a week later, 27-year-old Escobar was found shot dead. And he was actually shot 6 times and he died in hospital 45 minutes later. Now, this incident was one of the worst in the history of football.
Of a heart-shaped, multicolored logo aimed at promoting inclusion and diversity in soccer.
The 2022 World Cup in Qatar produced the clearest case of FIFA shutting down a player protest. 7 European nations, including England, Germany, the Netherlands, and Wales, had planned for their captains to wear a multicolored armband called One Love, a quiet statement in favor of inclusion and against discrimination. Then, just hours before the opening matches on November 21, 2022, FIFA made its position plain. Any captain who wore the armband would be shown a yellow card the moment he stepped onto the pitch, and further penalties could follow. The federations backed down within the day, saying they could not put their players in that position. England's Harry Kane wore a FIFA-approved armband instead. No captain was ever carded because none went against the order, but the protest itself was effectively silenced before it began.
In their team photo ahead of kickoff, covering their mouths.
Germany's national team answered FIFA's armband ban with one of the most memorable images of the tournament. Before their opening match against Japan on November 23, 2022, the entire starting 11 posed for the team photo with their hands clamped over their mouths. The message was unmistakable. They felt they were being silenced. The German Federation declared that human rights are non-negotiable and that being denied the armband felt like being muzzled. FIFA confirmed the team would face no punishment for the gesture itself. The German Federation went further, lodging a case with the Court of Arbitration for Sport over the ban, though the challenge did not overturn anything during the tournament. The protest cost the players nothing on the field, but it became a lasting symbol of the standoff.
The Soccer World Cup armband wars have escalated.
The fallout from the armband ban reached well beyond the pitch, into the world of sponsorship. Rewe, one of Germany's largest supermarket chains and a partner of the German Football Federation since 2008, announced on November 22, 2022, that it was ending its association with the team. This was no small gesture from a company with annual sales measured in the tens of billions of euros. Its chief executive, Lionel Souk, said the company stood for diversity, that football was diversity too, and that FIFA's stance was unacceptable to him both as a business leader and as a fan of the game. It was a striking reversal, a major sponsor walking away not because of anything the players did, but because of how football's governing body had treated them. In October 2024, more than 100 professional women footballers put their names to a blunt and very public rebuke of FIFA. The players, 106 of them from 24 countries, signed an open letter to FIFA president Gianni Infantino, objecting to a major sponsorship deal with the Saudi state oil company Aramco, which had been announced earlier that year. The letter did not hold back, calling the partnership a middle finger to women's football and warning that FIFA might as well pour oil on the pitch and set it alight. The signatories included some of the biggest names in the women's game, among them former United States captain Becky Sauerbrunn and Dutch star Vivianne Miedema. FIFA defended the deal, saying the revenue it brings is reinvested into the women's game. The players faced no penalty, but the deal stood. In 2014, a group of the world's best women footballers brought a case against FIFA at a human rights tribunal. Led by the American star Abby Wambach and backed by more than 60 players from around the world, they argued that staging the 2015 Women's World Cup on artificial turf, while the men always played on natural grass, amounted to unequal treatment. The case named both FIFA and the Canadian organizers. The players eventually withdrew the complaint in January 2015 after being denied a fast-tracked hearing, and the tournament went ahead on turf. There was a sharper edge to the story, too. 3 players said they were warned they might be left off their national teams if they pressed on, and all 3 stepped away from the case. The next Women's World Cup, in 2019, was played on grass. In 2024, one of the world's finest midfielders gave voice to a growing frustration among players over how much football they are asked to play. Speaking in September, Manchester City and Spain star Rodri said the players were close to taking the drastic step of refusing to play, telling reporters that if you asked almost any player, they would say the same thing. He argued that a footballer can perform at the highest level in 40 to 50 matches a season, but that many were now facing 70 or even 80. His comments came as player unions launched formal legal challenges against FIFA over its crowded international calendar and expanded competitions. In a sad twist, Rodri suffered a serious knee injury just days later, underlining the very concern he had raised. The heaviest price of all was paid not by famous players, but by 2 women who worked inside the World Cup bidding process and chose to speak. Phaedra Al-Majid, who had worked for the Qatar 2022 bid, and Benita Murciades, a senior figure in Australia's bid, both gave evidence to an official investigation into how host nations were chosen. They had been promised their cooperation would stay confidential. When a summary of the investigation was published in November 2014, both said their identities were effectively exposed. Al-Majid described receiving alarming online messages, aimed even at her children, and was later offered protection by the FBI, saying she would be looking over her shoulder for years. Both women also found their credibility publicly questioned by football's authorities. Their careers in the game were over, and their experience stands as the starkest example of what spucking out can cost. Denmark went into the 2022 World Cup as one of the most outspoken teams of all, and FIFA pushed back. Months before the tournament, the Danish Federation and its kitmaker, Hummel, unveiled deliberately muted jerseys, with the logo and the team's famous markings faded almost to invisibility, plus an all-black shirt that Hummel said stood for mourning. It was a pointed statement about the human cost of the tournament's construction. Denmark then asked FIFA for permission to train in shirts reading "Human Rights for All." In November 2022, FIFA rejected the request, citing its rules against political messages on kit. The Federation's chief executive said the team believed the message was universal rather than political, but had to accept FIFA's ruling. It was another clear instance of football's governing body deciding which words its players were allowed to wear. Mauro Icardi is at the center of one of football's most jaw-dropping betrayals.
In the world of football, Icardi became the face of one of its wildest betrayals.
When the Argentine striker arrived in Italy at the club Sampdoria, an older compatriot named Maxi Lopez took him under his wing. The two became close friends, even holidaying together, and Lopez went out of his way to help the young Icardi settle in.
The two bonded quickly, vacationing together as Lopez helped Icardi settle in.
Then, Icardi began a relationship with Lopez's wife, the model and television presenter Wanda Nara. Wanda left Lopez, and in 2014, she married Icardi, who later admitted in his own book that he had taken his friend's wife.
Wanda left Lopez for Icardi, marrying him in 2014. He confessed the betrayal in his book.
The betrayal produced an unforgettable moment. When the two men met on the pitch as opponents, Lopez flatly refused to shake Icardi's hand, a snub the Italian press nicknamed the Wanda Derby.
When they met as rivals, Lopez refused Icardi's handshake.
Icardi even tattooed the names of Lopez's children on his own arm. The two former friends never patched things up. Ryan Giggs, one of Manchester United's greatest ever players, was at the heart of a scandal that tore his own family apart. For years, his public image was spotless, but in 2011, it emerged that Giggs had carried on a secret relationship lasting around 8 years with Natasha, the wife of his younger brother Rodri. The betrayal was made all the more painful by how close to home it struck. This was not a stranger, but his own brother's partner, and the relationship had continued through their marriage. Giggs had even taken out a costly legal order to keep the story out of the newspapers, but the truth eventually came out anyway. The fallout was severe and lasting. Ryan and Rodri stopped speaking, and reports years later confirmed the brothers remained estranged. Few football scandals have caused such deep and personal damage, splitting not a dressing room, but a family. John Terry was stripped of the England captaincy in 2010 over one of the most talked about scandals in English football. Terry, then the captain of both Chelsea and the national team, was reported to have been involved with Vanessa Parencel, the former partner of Wayne Bridge, his friend and former Chelsea teammate. The story caused an enormous storm. England's manager removed Terry as captain, and Bridge took the dramatic step of withdrawing from the national team altogether, giving up his place at that summer's World Cup. The defining image came when the two men met on the pitch, and Bridge pointedly refused to shake Terry's hand, a moment replayed endlessly. It is important to note that Parencel always firmly denied that any affair took place, and she later won printed apologies from newspapers that accepted their stories were untrue. The scandal and its fallout were very real, even as the central claim remained denied and unproven. Thibaut Courtois and Kevin De Bruyne, two stars of Belgium's golden generation, were once entangled in a rift that lingered for years. The story dates back to their early careers, when both were rising talents. De Bruyne had been in a long relationship with a woman named Caroline Linen. After they split, it emerged that Linen had become involved with Courtois, De Bruyne's own international teammate, while Courtois was playing in Spain. The revelation, which surfaced through interviews and De Bruyne's autobiography, caused obvious awkwardness within the Belgian national team, where the two men had to share a dressing room. Reports suggested their Belgian manager even offered to leave Courtois out of the squad, but De Bruyne declined for the good of the team. For years, the two remained personally distant, coexisting professionally while keeping their relationship cool. Encouragingly, by recent years, there were signs of a thaw, with Courtois publicly praising his longtime teammate. Shakira responded to the end of her relationship with footballer Gerard Piqué in the most public way imaginable, through music that broke world records. The Colombian superstar and the Barcelona defender had been together for around 11 years, meeting during the 2010 World Cup, and they had 2 sons. In June 2022, they announced their separation, against a backdrop of reports that Piqué had become involved with a young woman named Clara Chia. Shakira later said she learned of the betrayal while her father was seriously ill in hospital. Rather than stay silent, she poured her feelings into a song with the producer Bizarrap, filled with pointed jabs, including a famous line about trading a luxury car and watch for cheaper versions. The track became a worldwide sensation, shattering multiple streaming records and earning several Guinness World Records. Piqué, for his part, never publicly confirmed any betrayal. It became one of the most discussed celebrity splits on the planet. Ashley Cole's marriage to one of Britain's most famous pop stars collapsed under the weight of repeated scandal. The England left-back wed Cheryl, then a singer in the hugely popular group Girls Aloud, in 2006, and they were one of the country's most glamorous couples. The fairy tale did not last. In 2008, Cole was reported to have been unfaithful, and although the couple tried to repair things, further reports of his involvement with other women surfaced in early 2010. That proved to be the end. Cheryl announced their separation and filed for divorce, which was finalized later that year. The breakup was front-page news for weeks and became one of the most high-profile celebrity splits of its era. Both have since moved on with their lives, and reports suggest they remain on reasonably friendly terms, but the marriage stands as one of football's most public romantic downfalls. Wayne Rooney, one of England's greatest goal scorers, has weathered a series of scandals that repeatedly put his marriage to the test. Rooney has been with his wife Colleen since they were teenagers, eventually marrying in 2008, and theirs has long been one of British football's most famous relationships. Over the years, however, his name was tied to several embarrassing episodes involving other women, stories that made national headlines and caused his wife obvious public hurt. Through all of it, the couple stayed together. Colleen has repeatedly chosen to forgive her husband and rebuild, something she has spoken about openly, including in her own autobiography and a documentary about their lives. The Rooneys remain married to this day, with 4 children, and their relationship has become a study in endurance. Few couples in football have faced so much turbulence in the public eye and still managed to stay together through it all. Sven-Göran Eriksson, the first foreign manager of the England national team, found himself at the center of a scandal that shook the country's football association. The Swedish coach, known for his calm and quiet manner, was revealed in 2004 to have been involved with Faria Alam, a secretary who worked at the Football Association. What made the situation especially messy was that Alam had also been connected to a senior executive at the same organization. When the story broke, it caused turmoil at the very top of English football's governing body, ultimately leading to the departure of the executive and of Alam herself. The episode was a major embarrassment for an institution meant to be focused on the game. Eriksson, who was in a high-profile relationship at the time, weathered the storm and kept his job for a while longer, but the affair remains one of the most famous off-field scandals in the history of English football. Francesco Totti, the legendary one-club hero of the Italian side Roma, saw his long marriage end in a storm of accusations. Totti and the television presenter Ilari Blasi had been one of Italy's most beloved celebrity couples for around 17 years, with 3 children together. In 2022, they announced their separation, and what followed was anything but quiet. Each accused the other of unfaithfulness. Totti was publicly linked to another woman, while he in turn alleged his wife had been involved with someone else. Their breakup became a national soap opera in Italy, splashed across newspapers and gossip programs for months on end. The split then moved into the courts, with drawn-out arguments over money, property, and their children. For a couple once seen as the picture of devotion, it was a dramatic and very public unraveling, and one of the most followed celebrity separations Italy had seen in years. David Beckham faced one of football's most famous scandals during his time in Spain, though it is a story he has always firmly denied. In 2004, while playing for Real Madrid, a woman named Rebecca Luce, who had worked as his personal assistant, told a British newspaper that she had been involved with the then-married England captain. The claims caused a global media frenzy. Beckham, married to former Spice Girl Victoria Beckham since 1999, rejected the allegations outright, calling the stories ludicrous and insisting he was very happily married. He never took legal action, and he has never confirmed any wrongdoing. Luce, for her part, has stood by her account in the years since. In their later Netflix documentary, the couple acknowledged it was the most intense period of pressure their marriage had ever faced, without confirming any affair. The Beckhams remain married to this day, more than 2 decades on.
So first up, I'm going to be introducing Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo, he's 33 years old and he plays for the club teams Real Madrid from 2009 to present, and he played for Manchester United from 2003 to 2009. He also played for Sporting Lisbon from 2002 to 2003. Ronaldo's nationality is Portuguese, and we took a look at the awards that he's won. He's won Ballon d'Or 5 times. That was in the year 2017, 2016, 2014, 2013, and 2008. And this was all done when he was on Manchester United. He also won the Best FIFA Men's Player twice in the year 2016 and 2017. Now that's pretty impressive. Now let's take a look at Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi, he's 30 years of age, and the club team that he plays for is Barcelona, and that's from 2004 to this present date. Lionel Messi is an Argentine from the country Argentina. Argentina, and he's won the Ballon d'Or award 5 times in the year 2015, 2012, 2011, 2010, and 2009. Now, in looking further into their statistics, this is how Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo match up with goals, hat tricks, and goal ratios. Now, this excludes friendly matches, by the way. Ronaldo has 653 total goals and 207 assists in 908 appearances. Messi has 612 goals and 249 assists in 758 appearances. In terms of hat tricks, Ronaldo has 50, Messi has 46. And the career goal ratio for Ronaldo is 0.72 goals per game, and Messi is at 0.81 goals per game. And just to clarify, that was for the all-time career goals for the country level as well as their club level. So let's break down these numbers and take a look at what they did at the club level and then what they did for their national team level. At the club level, Ronaldo has 572 goals and 180 assists in 759 appearances. Messi has 551 goals and 2012 assists in 635 appearances. For the hat tricks at the club level, Ronaldo has 45 and Messi has 41. And the club goal ratio for Ronaldo is 0.75 goals per game, and Messi is 0.87 goals per game. At their international level, when they play for their national teams, Ronaldo has 81 goals and 27 assists in 149 appearances for Portugal. Messi has 61 goals and 37 assists in 123 appearances for Argentina. The total number of hat tricks for Ronaldo is 5, and Messi also is 5, so they're equal there. And when it comes to their international career goal ratio, Ronaldo is at 0.54 goals and Messi is at 0.50 goals. Now let's take a look at the number of trophies that they won at the club level and also at the international level. First up, I want to look at Ronaldo's club honors. He's won the Premier League title 3 times, and the FA Cup, he's won that once. The English Football League Cup, he's won that twice. 2 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Rey titles. He's won the Spanish Super Cup twice. The UEFA Champions League, he won that 4 times. And the UEFA Super Cup, he's won that twice. And when it comes to the FIFA Club World Cup, he's won 4 awards. But for his international honors, he's only won the UEFA European Championship title, and that was once in the year 2016. Now moving on to Lionel Messi's club honors. Messi has 8 La Liga titles. He has 6 Copa del Rey honors, and the Spanish Super Cup, he's won that 6 times. The UEFA Championships League, 4 times for that, and the UEFA Super Cup, 3 times. And then for the FIFA Club World Cup, he's won 3 of those. Now, in terms of his international honors, he's won the FIFA U20 World Cup once, and that was in the year 2005. And then he has an Olympic gold medal in the year 2008.